Own It TV presents your online showcase, from commissioning a designer to good customer service. Is your website doing the job? And do you know what you need to do if you hold customers' data? Who owns the copyright in your website? Porcelain gift designer Jo Heckett talks about her journey from a one-page site to an online shop.
Pretty much as soon as I set up the business and started trading properly, I realised I needed a website. So I started with a single holding page, but then quite quickly I realised that wasn't enough. So within about a year, I commissioned a more complicated website that was more of a showcase. But then again, I realised that really wasn't enough to allow the business to grow, and that what I needed was an e-shop. So that's when I commissioned the site that I have now. The primary thing was that it needed to be user-friendly. So that means it had to be clean, easy to navigate and intuitive. So it was very easy for shoppers to find their way around and to understand the content, understand the images, understand the copy, and be able to move from page to page very easily and back. So that was the first element. And also that the actual shopping process was clean and simple. To support that, the design had to be clean and simple. So there was no distractions, no music, nothing slow to load, no animations, because they slow down the whole process, and also they date very quickly. The next factor was that I wanted to be able to control the content and update it as I needed to. So for that reason, I needed a CMS, which is a content management system. So that allows me to upload all my own photographs and my own text and copy. When it came to choosing the web developer, I wanted to work with someone who had a lot of experience and could support my ideas and help me work through it. So rather than go for the cheapest option, I wanted someone that was recommended to me, a bit like a builder really, that I could have confidence in. So I went with someone who had worked with a friend of mine and who'd made a very good website. And then once I decided that I wanted to work with them, we started working out between us what the website should be. So we had an initial first meeting and then worked out by email the overall concept. Once we got to that point, we agreed on what it was going to be, and from then on, any extras are going to cost more.
It's very important to make sure that you have written terms, and those written terms can be, in principle, as part of an email chain. So if you agree over email, that can in principle be a written contract. But if there's any kind of copyright assignment going on, then that needs to be signed by the first owner of the copyright. So the first owner in the front end may be the person who does the design of the website and what it actually looks like, not the functionality, because that's not protected by copyright. The source code will also be protected by copyright as a literary work. And usually the source code will be retained by the web developer because it's something that they'll want to use again and again on different projects. If that is the case, and it's likely to be the case, what you want to make sure that you have in place is some sort of escrow agreement. So if the web developer goes under, if they go bust for any reason, you've still got access to the source code. It will be held in escrow, so there's someone there holding on to the source code, and if the web developer does go under, you can take that and you can do any further development, any maintenance that you might need to do.
Photographs on the internet are really, really important. You need to think about consistency, about how you're going to show your product and what it is, and you need really, really good professional photographs. If you can't shoot them yourself, it's really worth getting a photographer to shoot them for you. I do shoot quite a few myself. I do my lifestyle shots. Because my products are very small, they often have to be put in context. So to show their size, for example, I might shoot them in my hand and then make sure that the written description also has the measurements so people know what they're getting. For the shots on a clear white background, I really think you need a photographer. So I commission someone who that is what they do, that's their job. And I give them a very clear description of what I want, how I want the shot to be taken. One of the reasons is because on my website, like most websites, have got square thumbnails. On my website, they have square thumbnails, and also the main shot is portrait shaped. So I need to be very careful to make sure that the main visual part of the photograph is in the middle so that it shows in the thumbnail and in the main picture.
Photographs are copyright works, and they're protected by copyright mainly in the same way as any other copyright work. So in order to use somebody else's photographs, you do need to make sure that you have permission. Similarly, if somebody else wants to use your photographs or photographs that you own the copyright in, they'll need to have your permission as well. So it's worth keeping that in mind when you're thinking about controlling the use of your images, how your work's disseminated.
One of the interesting things that happens when you trade on the internet is your business appears bigger than it is, and people's expectations are very high of that business. If they feel those expectations aren't met, they can be quite rude. So it's really important not to take it personally. It happens to everyone. Remember that your business isn't judged on whether you make a mistake or not. It's actually judged on how you deal with that mistake. It really helps to have very clear and concise terms and conditions that allow people to know exactly what to expect from you if things go right and if things go wrong.
It's very important to make sure that you have good e-commerce terms and conditions on your website, and they need to cover a number of things. They need to cover the actual intellectual property in the site. They need to cover when a contract is formed, so at what point the obligation arises to actually send things. And perhaps most importantly of all, they'll usually deal with your obligations under the distance selling regulations. And those obligations range from giving information about the company to the right to return and things like that. And it can be quite a minefield to get the detail right. I understand that a lot of people take terms and conditions from other people's websites, and that is copyright infringement actually, so it shouldn't actually be done. But if you are getting an idea of what to write from other people's websites, it's a good idea to speak to a lawyer as well, because there's all kinds of things in the distance selling regulations that can trip you up.
So as well as my website, I use the internet in other ways for my business. So I use Facebook, Twitter. I have an email campaign that I do from an email hosting web company. There are links to all these things on the website and back and forth. So if people stumble across me from one platform, they can then follow through to another.
When you're collecting people's names, their email addresses, their details, when you're putting together your mailing list, it's important that you get the relevant consent to make sure that they're happy to be added to the mailing list. When you actually send out your mail shots, you always need to make sure that they have the right to be taken off, so that you give them the link to click onto so that they can be taken off the mailing list. On the website itself, it's important that you make sure you have an adequate privacy policy. That will usually mean getting a lawyer to draft that for you to make sure you tick all the boxes. Also, if you're going to be controlling people's details, if you're going to be having people's data, you need to be registered as a data controller with the Information Commissioner. The process is relatively cheap and pretty quick, but it's important to remember to do it, especially if you're going to be running your business mainly through your website.
Showing and selling your work online is an important step in building a sustainable business, but there are many issues which you need to consider along the way. And, with terms and conditions and your privacy policy, it is recommended that you seek the advice of a lawyer. For further information on the legal issues mentioned in this film, visit Own It, the only intellectual property advisory service tailored to the needs of businesses in the creative sector.